Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the GreenWave podcast by SYNI International. I'm your host, SYNI, and today we're covering the last leg of our tour through the global green hydrogen subsidy race, concluding the series with part 3. This week we're focused on South America, highlighted by the regional energy superpower Brazil. For any of our listeners that thought we were geographically challenged by not mentioning South America in our first 2 pods, we're sorry to disappoint you to have saved South America for our finale. In the past 2 episodes, we journeyed through Europe, North America, Asia, and the Middle East to see how different regions are stoking their green hydrogen sectors. Now, we turn to South America, a continent rich in natural resources and renewable energy potential, eager to ride the hydrogen wave. Grab your virtual passport as we head south. We'll start in Brazil, the powerhouse that's as big in clean energy as it is in carnival spirit. Then hop across the Andes to Chile's deserts and winds, swing by Argentina's Patagonia plains, and finish in the Colombian highlands. Each of these countries is crafting its own strategy in the green hydrogen race, complete with bold ambitions, intriguing partnerships, impressive projects, and, of course, a few challenges that keep things, let's say, interesting. Brazil is often called a regional energy superpower, and for good reason. This is a country that already gets over 80% of its electricity from renewable sources, thanks largely to hydroelectric dams, plus booming wind and solar, and it has decades of experience running cars on biofuels. Now, Brazil is gearing up to apply that know-how to green hydrogen. The government and industry see hydrogen as the next big chapter in Brazil's energy story, one that could fuel domestic industries, generate new exports, and further solidify Brazil's leadership in sustainable energy. Let's talk policy first. Brazil launched its national hydrogen program, Programa Nacional de Hidrogênio, or PNH2, back in April 2021, signalling that hydrogen is a national priority. The program lays out 6 strategic pillars, supporting R&D and technology, building human capital, energy planning, creating a legal and regulatory framework, market development and competitiveness, and international cooperation. In other words, Brazil isn't just dipping a toe in the hydrogen waters. It's crafting a comprehensive ecosystem to make hydrogen a viable part of the economy. Since 2021, multiple legislative proposals related to hydrogen have been circulating in the Brazilian Congress, and recent years have seen around half a dozen hydrogen bills or legal instruments under debate. The Brazilian Green Hydrogen Industry Association, ABIHV, formed in 2023, has been lobbying hard on this. They argue that hydrogen should receive policy support like what wind and solar got in their early days. For example, Brazil's renewable boom in the 2000s and 2010s was propelled by things like low-interest loans from the Development Bank, tax breaks on equipment, and long-term power auctions. ABIHV isn't asking for a blank check. They're asking for a level playing field and smart incentives. They've even provided data to lawmakers, emphasizing that electricity makes up roughly 70% of the cost of producing green hydrogen via electrolysis. So any policy that brings down renewable power costs or provides credits for hydrogen production will go a long way. It's a compelling pitch. ABIHV projects trillions of Brazilian reals in investment by 2027 if hydrogen gets the right boost, a figure that certainly got policymakers' attention. Now, Brazil's government under President Lula, back in office since 2023, has been keen on reclaiming climate leadership. Brazil is set to host COP30 in late 2025, and there's buzz that the country would love to showcase major green initiatives by then, with hydrogen front and centre. While a dedicated hydrogen law hasn't been passed as of mid-2025, the regulatory pieces are moving into place. For instance, Brazil's National Petroleum Agency, ANP, has been working on rules for certifying hydrogen and perhaps blending it into existing gas pipelines. And some Brazilian states aren't waiting for Brasilia. They're rolling out their own incentives. Ceará State, for example, home to the port of Pecém, a key future hydrogen export hub, set up a special free trade zone and tax perks to attract hydrogen projects. These state-level moves tie into a broader strategy. Leverage Brazil's extensive port infrastructure and export zones to make it easy for companies to set up hydrogen production for export. Brazil's advantage is its vast geography and diverse renewable resources, so multiple hubs are emerging. Northeast Hub, Ceará, Port of Pecém, is one of the most talked about clusters. Pecém is a port ideally located to ship hydrogen or ammonia to Europe and North America, and it sits near some of Brazil's strongest steady wind, offshore and onshore, and sunny areas. Several heavyweight companies have signed memorandums of understanding, MOUs, to develop green hydrogen there. It's a real international roster, all eyeing Pecém. On the use case side within Brazil, a lot of attention is on green steel and green mining. Brazil is one of the world's top iron ore producers. It has vast iron deposits in states like Minas Gerais and Pará, and also a significant steel producer, ranked 9th globally. Decarbonizing steel is hard, and green hydrogen could be the silver bullet by replacing coal in the steel-making process. In fact, thanks to its cheap renewables and high-grade iron ore, Brazil could produce green, direct reduced iron, DRI, essentially sponge iron made with hydrogen, at costs up to 65% lower than traditional steelmaking hubs in Europe or Asia. That is huge. Of course, Brazil's hydrogen dreams aren't confined to steel. Other anticipated uses include heavy-duty transport, oil refining, and shipping fuel. There's even exploration of sustainable aviation fuels using green hydrogen to make synfuels, though that's more nascent. Now, no discussion is complete without the challenges and a bit of reality check. For all its advantages, Brazil faces some hurdles in this subsidy race. The scale of projects being proposed is enormous. We're talking multi-billion-dollar investments to build gigawatt-scale electrolyzers, new dedicated renewable plants, storage, pipelines, export terminals, etc. While Brazil has a strong private sector and also powerful public banks like BNDES, the National Development Bank, the industry will only take off if investors are confident in the long-term returns. That's why the policy framework is crucial. Investors are looking for signals like, will there be production tax credits or offtake guarantees for green hydrogen? Will Brazil implement a domestic carbon market or requirements that force industries to use green hydrogen down the line? If yes, that creates local demand and a safety net for investors. Brazil is pondering these. For example, one idea floated is a mandatory blend of green hydrogen or its derivatives in certain industrial uses by a target date, akin to biofuel blending mandates in gasoline. There's also discussion of using public procurement, like requiring railways or certain state-owned industries to buy green hydrogen products. Clarity on these points will help unlock the trillions of reals that ABIHV claims are ready to flow. So, Brazil is entering a global race. Other regions we discussed earlier, like the US with its juicy subsidies, or Europe with its carbon pricing and import needs, and the Middle East with huge projects, are all vying to be major hydrogen players. Brazil's strategy heavily eyes export markets, sending green ammonia to Europe or Asia. That means Brazil has to stay cost competitive and reliable in the eyes of overseas buyers. Any delays in developing projects or policy uncertainty could see investors choose, say, Namibia or Australia or Saudi Arabia for their next hydrogen mega project instead of Brazil. There's a bit of a first mover advantage at stake. If Brazil can get a couple of large-scale projects actually producing by the late 2020s, it can establish itself as a credible supplier and lock in long-term contracts. If everything stays in planning and MOU stage too long, others might steal the march. From the massive tropics of Brazil, we move to Chile, a skinny strip of a country with outsized renewable energy potential and an early claim to hydrogen fame. Chile often likes to bill itself as the Saudi Arabia of green hydrogen in the making. Lofty? Sure, but not without reason. Chile's natural conditions are phenomenal for clean energy. The Atacama Desert in the north has the world's most intense solar radiation, perfect for solar farms that crank out power at ultra-low cost. Meanwhile, Patagonia in the far south boasts howling winds that rival the best offshore wind sites anywhere, but onshore in wide open spaces. In fact, Chile estimates it has enough renewable resources to produce 70 times more power than it currently needs if fully harnessed. That excess, in theory, can be converted to green hydrogen and shipped around the world. Chile was one of the earliest countries to publish a national hydrogen strategy released at the end of 2020. The timing is notable. It beat many larger countries to the punch, signalling Chile's intent to lead. The strategy set ambitious goals. Chile wants to produce the world's cheapest green hydrogen, targeting under $1.50 per kilogram by 2030, and to be among the top exporters by 2040. They projected reaching about 1.6 million tons of green hydrogen output per year by 2040, mostly for export, contributing an estimated $24 billion in annual export revenues, with the domestic market worth another $9 billion by then. How is Chile trying to achieve this? A combination of government incentives, international partnerships, and enabling regulation. A big first step was taken in late 2021 when Chile's Economic Development Agency, Corfo, held a competition to co-finance flagship green hydrogen projects. They put $50 million on the table, not a huge sum globally, but significant for Chile's size, to kickstart the sector. By early 2022, they selected 6 projects to award funds, aiming for those to be operational by 2025. Collectively, these 6 projects represent about 396 megawatts of electrolyzer capacity and are expected to produce over 45,000 tons of hydrogen per year once up and running. Indeed, green ammonia and e-fuels are key focuses in Chile, since shipping pure hydrogen is tricky. Converting it to ammonia, methanol, or other chemicals for export is more practical. Chile's government also knows that clear rules are needed, so they've been working on a regulatory roadmap to cover everything from how to permit hydrogen production plants to safety standards for handling hydrogen, to perhaps eventually blending hydrogen into gas pipelines or using it in mining operations. For instance, they are drafting a hydrogen facilities regulation, rules for multi-fuel hydrogen service stations, safety codes for hydrogen vehicles, and even standards for hydrogen use in mining equipment. This kind of detailed regulatory groundwork might sound boring, but it's absolutely necessary to build investor confidence and ensure operations can run smoothly and safely. Speaking of mining, Chile's economy heavily depends on mining. It's the world's largest copper producer, among other minerals. The mining sector is both a potential big user of hydrogen and a source of decarbonization pressure. Large mines need explosives, ammonium nitrate typically made from ammonia, and they run gigantic trucks and machinery that currently guzzle diesel. Chile sees green hydrogen as a solution. Green ammonia to produce mining explosives, and hydrogen fuel, or hydrogen-based synthetic fuels, to power those monster mine haul trucks and drills. Another domestic use, petroleum refining and fertilizer production. Chile imports all its fossil fuels, and its single oil refinery could use green hydrogen to replace the grey hydrogen it currently makes from natural gas for refining processes. Also, Chile has farmers needing fertilizer. Producing green ammonia domestically could improve self-sufficiency. But Chile's real play is exports. Geographically, Chile is well positioned to ship to Asian markets, across the Pacific, and to Europe via the Panama Canal or around Cape Horn, a bit longer. They have deep water ports and a mining-oriented export infrastructure that can be adapted. Recognizing the need for huge investment, Chile has actively courted international partnerships. Germany, for one, has been a close partner. There's a German-Chilean hydrogen alliance, and Germany's development bank, KfW, plus the European Union have pledged hundreds of millions of euros in cheap loans or grants to support Chilean hydrogen projects. Something like 200 plus million euros has been earmarked. Why? Because Germany, and Europe broadly, knows it will likely need to import green molecules, and Chile is a like-minded, stable partner to develop as a supplier. There's something in it for both sides. Chile gets funding and a future market. Europe gets a green energy source. Japan and South Korea have also shown interest. Japanese companies have sniffed around Chilean projects, and Chile has discussed hydrogen cooperation with South Korea as well. Finally, let's address the domestic political challenges for Chile. Chile's government changed in 2022, from a centre-right administration that launched the hydrogen push to a young left-wing president, Gabriel Boric. Interestingly, hydrogen has been a bipartisan priority. Boric's government has maintained support for it, seeing it as aligned with Chile's climate goals and an opportunity for sustainable development. But one shift Boric introduced, emphasising that Chile wants this new industry to benefit Chileans, not just foreign investors. There's talk of possibly creating a national green hydrogen company, or at least ensuring the state has a stake in major projects, similar to how Codelco is state-owned in copper. While nothing concrete like that has happened yet, it's an ongoing conversation about how to maximise local value, jobs, and avoid just being an export colony. Investors might have to navigate this careful balance of profit and local benefit. Next on our South American tour, Argentina. If Brazil and Chile are the early frontrunners, Argentina is the dark horse with both tremendous promise and a fair share of hurdles to clear. In the realm of green hydrogen, Argentina made headlines in 2021 with one of the world's largest proposed projects, a staggering $8.4 billion plan announced by Fortescue Future Industries, FFI, the renewables arm of Australian mining giant Fortescue. This project, planned in Argentina's southern Patagonia region, Rio Negro province, envisions 15 gigawatts of wind-powered electrolyzers by 2030, capable of producing up to 2.2 million tonnes of green hydrogen annually once fully ramped up. To put that in perspective, that alone would be several times more hydrogen than Chile's 2040 goal, and on par with some of the biggest global proposals. The Argentine government at the time hailed it as the biggest foreign investment in Argentina in decades and a game changer for the nation's export profile. So why Patagonia? Well, much like Chile's south, the winds in Patagonia, particularly around the town of Sierra Grande in Rio Negro, where Fortescue's project is centred, are exceptionally strong and consistent. Patagonia's landscape of windswept plateaus could host massive wind farms with high capacity factors, meaning they produce a lot of energy per installed megawatt. The area is sparsely populated, a former mining region eager for new industry. The plan would be to generate gigawatts of clean power, electrolyse water, likely desalinated seawater from the nearby Atlantic coast, and produce green hydrogen, largely to be converted to ammonia for ease of shipping. Fortescue even talked about creating an export hub at the port of Bahia Blanca, or a new dedicated port, effectively turning Argentina into a green ammonia exporting country by the end of the decade. However, as many investors know, Argentina's two constant companions are potential and risk. The country has a history of economic instability, cycles of inflation, debt, currency controls, and shifting policy regimes. Back in 2024, Argentina grappled with inflation over 100% and strict controls on foreign exchange. Essentially, it's hard for companies to convert pesos to dollars and vice versa, or to repatriate profits freely. For a huge project like Fortescue's, which requires importing a lot of equipment and then eventually exporting product and converting earnings to dollars, these macroeconomic factors are a big concern. Indeed, clouds of doubt have dogged Fortescue's grand project from the start, and the last years can be favourably described as a holding pattern. The issue? FFI wanted assurances it could access foreign currency without punitive restrictions. Basically, if they invest billions, they want to be able to get their profits out in dollars later, not be stuck in pesos at a bad exchange rate. By the time of a new Milei government coming into power, Argentina underwent a major election in late 2023. The status of hydrogen on a national level became uncertain. The new administration has different economic priorities and, at least initially, was less focused on climate initiatives. There is hope in the industry that the hydrogen law could still move forward, perhaps with adjustments, because it has support from many in the business community who see hydrogen as a rare opportunity for Argentina to diversify its exports beyond just agriculture and fossil fuels. It's a kind of moonshot that could bring jobs to regions like Patagonia and earn hard currency by selling a 21st century green commodity. To be frank, Argentina's immediate challenge is less about finding uses and more about creating a stable environment for projects to actually get built. In the hydrogen subsidy race, you could say Argentina is like a talented but unpredictable competitor, capable of great strides if it gets its act together, but prone to stumbling due to internal issues. One positive recent development is increased global interest in Argentine hydrogen potential. For example, Germany and Argentina have been in talks, with Germany expressing interest in importing Argentine hydrogen or ammonia in the long term if it's available. Our final stop is Colombia. This is a country not always in the headlines when discussing cutting-edge clean tech, but Colombia has quietly been building a foundation to join the Green Hydrogen Club. Think of Colombia as the up-and-comer, not the biggest budget or the flashiest projects yet, but a strong strategic vision and some unique strengths that could make it a significant hydrogen player in the region over time. Colombia released a national hydrogen roadmap in 2021, outlining a plan through 2050. The roadmap sets relatively modest initial targets, like aiming for 1 to 3 gigawatts of electrolysis capacity by 2030 and producing perhaps 50,000 tons of low-carbon hydrogen by 2030, but it also envisions stretching goals out to mid-century, like 1 million tons per year by 2040 if things go well. The Colombian government essentially said, "We have the ingredients to be a global supplier, huge renewable potential, access to both the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Pacific Oceans for shipping, and an oil and gas industry that can pivot to hydrogen. So let's prepare now." One of Colombia's ingredients is its renewable energy resources. People might not realize, but Colombia's geography gives it a bit of everything. Strong equatorial sun, particularly in the northern Guajira desert region, some of the best onshore wind in the Americas, also in La Guajira on the Caribbean coast, significant rivers for hydroelectricity, which already provide most of Colombia's power, and even emerging interest in offshore wind in the Caribbean Sea. In fact, just the wind potential in the Guajira region is estimated at tens of gigawatts. These resources are currently underdeveloped. Colombia only recently began investing in large-scale wind and solar, since historically it leaned on hydro and fossil fuels. But new wind farms and solar farms are starting to pop up. Crucially, Colombia has been proactive in adjusting its legal framework. In July 2021, Colombia passed Law 2099, updating its energy laws to include hydrogen specifically. This law amended an earlier renewable energy law, making green and blue hydrogen eligible for the same incentives as other clean energy sources. Those incentives are quite attractive. Things like exemption from import duties on renewable equipment, VAT tax exclusion, accelerated depreciation for capital investments, and income tax deductions for clean energy projects. By explicitly adding hydrogen projects to the list, Colombia basically put out a welcome mat for companies. If you build hydrogen facilities here, you'll get tax breaks just like if you built a solar plant or a wind farm. Another strength is the institutional support ecosystem that's forming. Colombia now has a hydrogen association, Hidrogeno de Colombia, and a hydrogen chapter within its National Business Association, Andy Naturgas Hydrogen Chamber. These groups have identified dozens of potential projects. One survey said 36 hydrogen projects of various sizes were in planning, and are fostering collaboration between international tech providers and local firms. Internationally, Colombia has inked cooperation MOUs with countries like Japan. JBIC signed an MOU with EPM, a utility in Medellin, and European partners to share knowledge and possibly pave the way for investments. It's building a network of allies, which is smart for a newcomer country. Politics are also something to watch. In 2022, a new president, Gustavo Petro, took office on a platform of ambitious climate action, but also a controversial stance on reducing new oil development. Petro supports hydrogen as part of a post-oil strategy, but the pace of change and the handling of existing industries has raised some investor eyebrows. Stability in policy, keeping those incentives in place and not changing the rules mid-game, will be key to keeping investors interested. Well, that's a wrap on our 24th GreenWave podcast episode. We hope you enjoyed this final part of our 3-series deep dive pod. As always, we appreciate you sharing your time. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Podchaser, Boomplay, and Player FM. So feel free to follow the pod and share with friends. We'd love if you would leave a review. If you have missed any of our LinkedIn posts or the GreenWave Gazette, you can always catch us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Instagram, or visit synergy-international.net. We'll keep reflecting on the trends shaping sustainable finance and global policy. Until next time, keep riding the green wave of sustainability. Stay inspired and keep advocating for a healthier planet, one green hydrogen subsidy program at a time.